So, this video is longer than most. Luckily, I watch a lot of long videos and I have a life hack for you. All you gotta do is, instead of watching the whole thing, just play the audio. Listen to the audio while you are driving in your car, taking a stroll, or preparing a meal. Breakfast, lunch, doesn't matter. Just listen and enjoy. Hi, I'm Gary, co-founder of Tom and Gary's Decentralized Dance Party, and this is episode number 5 of the Don't Stop Believing vlog. It's November 5th, which is my birthday, and coincidentally, an internationally recognized day of revolution. The presidential election of 2016 is also drawing near, so it's the perfect time to record this episode. I'm going to wear these shades because I will be reading off the screen. And now you'll never know. This is a pretty gigantic topic, but I'm going to keep it as succinct as possible and add a bunch of links below for anyone who wants to delve deeper. It's being recorded with just a couple hours preparation, so please forgive if it's not amazing start to finish. I'd love to spend a week creating something exceptional, but there's no time, and just wanted to get this out ASAP. Written a few things down, but lots of it is going to be freestyled. Joining me astride this lovely potted plant is good friend Cameron Gray, DDP's Minister of the Interior. Cam and I both identify as decentralists and are closely politically aligned, but we still challenge each other and have great political and philosophical conversations all the time. Cam will interject wherever he thinks a point should be made or a question should be posed, and we're just going to do it like that. See how it goes. Good plan?
Great to be here, Gary.
Great to have you. Should mention Cam also set up this arrangement between us.
So we don't get too close.
Can't have that. Wouldn't be politically correct. Okay, so this video is entitled, "There are no political solutions to any of our problems." And as an avowed decentralist, that has been my unwavering position for the past 5 years. The decentralist position, in my opinion, is that power corrupts, and that to minimize corruption and maximize human freedom and flourishing, all the world's power structures ought to be decentralized to the greatest degree possible. By utilizing emergent technologies like Bitcoin's blockchain technology, this vision is now within the realm of possibility. Whereas traditional political action is competitive, forceful, and involves direct resistance against other competing power structures, decentralization is the antithesis of politics. It is an emergent process that is 100% voluntary, peaceful, and cooperative. And
so maybe you should just clarify here, because like we were talking about before, some people could see decentralization as inherently political in itself, and that you are still making a political position by identifying as a decentralist. What is your definition of political?
I guess there's multiple definitions of political. One of my favorite quotes by E. Angstrom, of course, the band, is that when you have enough perspective on anything, it becomes art. But that could also be applied to when you have enough perspective on anything, it could become a joke or political or whatever. So a lot of things could be viewed as...
It's a great quote, I like that.
The art one?
Yeah.
That's one of my
so true.
He said it in a very mocking way. In the middle of a show, I don't know. Just making fun of pretty much everything. But yeah, like we were talking the other day about how there's that interview Glenn Beck with Cody Wilson.
All right, with Cody Wilson, the creator of the 3D printed gun.
Yeah, they were talking about how there's some sort of political debate about how many bullets should be in a magazine or whatever, and he's like, I've created this new thing. This is a political act. Like, the debate is over.
The gun debate is over.
Yeah.
You can 3D print a gun now.
Apparently so.
And
Not that we would.
what he said this is real politics.
Yeah.
Is what he said. Like, as if he's he's a decentralizer in ways, and he's calling it political, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. It's like a different scope reference. It's a different scope.
And you could say
political.
it could also be an artistic act. Anytime you're introducing
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's art.
new or unlikely into the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything could be, well, not anything, but a lot of actions could be seen as political. But the definition here, when we say there are no political solutions to any of our problems, that would be regarding politics as the initiation of force by a state actor. Some government or dictator or whatever who has power over people and can compel them by force or the threat of force to do something. And my belief is that whenever force is the basis of your societal order, you're going to create association, disenfranchisement, and no permanent solutions to a problem. Like,
Here's a question. Do you think it would have been possible to scale humanity without the use of force or centralized institutions? Because I feel like it would be impossible.
yeah, I mean, way back in the day, you had kind of decentralized, localized tribal societies, and they had kind of their own order.
Well, there's the number when there's too many people in your community, where Dunbar's number, where
Dunbar's number.
you can't fit any more people in your head to know and trust, so then anonymity starts spreading, and then what do you do about the anonymity? You create a centralized institution, give guns to people to take care of the crime because of the anonymity, and I really think that there's maybe it was, it was necessary to this point. If we want to scale humanity, if that's like a good thing to do, then it seems like that was maybe the only way to do it until now.
Yeah.
When now that's where I feel like it's becoming there's no reason why we should still be doing it, because we have the technology to, as you said, get rid of more corruption with more transparent, open, decentralized systems.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And even still, if we did remain tribes, the tribes just kill each other too. So. You can have a happy tribe, but then there's another tribe that comes along, and you guys, us versus them it to death.
For sure, and there was always, a lot of these tribes couldn't communicate with each other, but you've seen, like, as crazy as the world seems and as hysterical as everyone is, like, apparently there is definitely a march towards more and more peace and less deaths and greater human rights as we're kind of awakening to
there's more
new knowledge and ways to communicate. Like back in the day, behind the Iron Curtain, like Russian or Soviets and North Americans, they couldn't even communicate. They could just maybe look at each other over a wall. Like the media was totally controlled, and now it can be like direct.
That's a really great point.
I remember in our film class, there was this guy from Slovakia or Slovenia. He was alive. He was an older guy. He was alive there, and he got up in class one day, and he's like, "Growing up, we think American have head of animal." But that's true. Like if you've never met these people that you're gonna be pitted against by some kind of central leader, ruler, whether it's a leader of a tribe or a government or whatever. If you can't have that direct interaction, then you can have millions of people thinking that Americans or whoever are just these evil things with heads of animals that want to get you, and you can totally dominate and submit a population based on fear, and that's kind of the standard for history. If you can make people fearful and play on that, and just pit them against someone, common enemy.
Or even just guilty, just for not serving the greater good.
Their tribe, nationalism. saluting your flag. But that's where this whole decentralization thing, I believe, is different. Like, instead of a common enemy, which is the best way to rally people, whether it's sports team, another country, tribe, social group, or whatever, decentralization is like a common goal that everybody can build or work towards. Whether it's building the Wikipedia or open source software together, stuff that can be collectively owned and used to benefit everybody, instead of developing some proprietary software, whether the US or China or whatever, and then you have to have all these trade laws and like cybercrime concerns, and you can say, oh, they're hacking our intellectual property or whatever. Like, if we could all just be collectively building this stuff as a global community.
Collective.
And using it together.
Collective knowledge as a common good for everyone on the in the solar system, because we'll be on Mars soon. So I guess we gotta accept the Martians as well.
Never. It's us against them.
Mars attacks.
It's us against them. It might be good to look at the camera once in a while.
You think so? Yeah. Okay.
Make it a three-way chat.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is good. Like, this is way better than me just reading some monologue thing off the page. So the next thing written was, whereas traditional political action is competitive, forceful, and involves direct resistance against other competing power structures, decentralization is the antithesis of politics. It is an emergent process that is 100% voluntary, peaceful, and cooperative. And successfully seen through, I believe it will make politics obsolete forever and bring about a new era of peace and prosperity for everyone on Earth. In an era of heightened societal tension, endless political infighting, international terrorism, and epidemic levels of addiction and depression worldwide, I think it is a vision that many would welcome, but most wouldn't believe possible. As you were saying.
Like I was saying, yeah.
But I'm a believer, and perhaps by the end of this conversation, you will be as well. Anyhow, I figure that the best way to present the decentralization argument is to provide an overview of my own political evolution. The early years. I was raised in a small town in northern Ontario in the 1990s. The internet was extremely primitive, and it was the Clinton era. Politics was pretty much just an endless sideshow focused on Bill Clinton's sexual misadventures. Ever heard of those?
I think so, yeah.
It happened. My peers and I didn't pay much attention to any of it. When George Bush got reelected, I thought it was Bush Sr. getting reelected again. I was completely out of touch with it all. The only politics we really paid attention to were American, as Canadian politics tended to be pretty stiflingly boring.
Yep.
It's true.
Very boring.
Unless you're
a boring person
Kramer.
who likes boring things.
It's not very nice. What's his name? Kramer used to watch the Senate on Seinfeld.
Oh, no, I never.
He would sit and watch that Canadian Senate channel.
Oh, yeah.
Just like the Senate proceedings all day long.
Like the Canadian one?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
He would just sit and watch it for hours. It was like the worst thing you could ever access. When I was 19, the 9/11 attacks went down and everything changed. Fear gripped the world. Afghanistan was invaded and plans to invade Iraq were being readied. In Canada, the opinion was near unanimous that invading Iraq was a terrible idea. Would you concur?
Yeah, terrible.
Terrible. Cam grew up in British Columbia, right?
Yes.
I grew up in Ontario.
Oh, right.
But same opinion out here?
Yeah, no, it's pretty unanimous.
I can't
Wireless
think of,
bombs exploding.
Yeah, I don't think I met or talked to a single person who believed it was justified or wise. I started to pay attention and was dating a girl who was really into Michael Moore and other political documentaries like The Corporation, which is a really cool one that I recommend. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I watched it in high school. It was really good.
The Iraq War was launched in the spring of 2003, and shortly thereafter, my girlfriend and I moved to Vancouver. We attended protests, watched The Daily Show with Jon Stewart every night, and I created a mini documentary that remixed the Iraq footage that was on our television every night with the Vietnam War documentaries we'd been renting from a nearby video rental store. I learned more and more about the depth and history of global political corruption and the incessant peddling of fear and other propaganda to coerce and control populations worldwide. We probably both would have identified as liberals at this time. There was a quote I came across around then from Winston Churchill, who said, "If you aren't a liberal when you're a young person, you don't have a heart. And if you're not a conservative by the time you get old, you don't have a brain." And I remember kind of chuckling at that and wondering if I would come around to that viewpoint. And I guess I have, but now we've advanced beyond any political spectrum. So, Churchill, you got nothing. I still remember my girlfriend crying in 2004 after Bush got reelected. We both thought that 4 more years of Bush would probably result in a nuclear terrorist attack and spark some sort of global Armageddon event. It was pretty crazy times. I remember like every day we were like watching CNN and they're like, yeah, just wait, Osama's trying to get whatever, plutonium or whatever you need to make like a dirty bomb, nuclear attack.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like fear, 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 fear. And the war was just ramping up. There was just like this huge resistance, this giant fight. Yeah, I mean, there's a quote from Hermann Göring, who was, I think, Hitler's designated successor. And it says, "Of course the people don't want war, but after all, it is the leaders of the country who determine the policy. And it is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is to tell them they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country." So yeah, going back to that old tribal stuff, pit people against each other, denounce the pacifists. And that's what happened in the States once again. Totally just playing out, history repeating itself. But yeah, it was around this time video was starting to become a thing on the internet. I don't think YouTube didn't come out till like 2005 or 6.
Yep.
But I was getting super fascinated by the Wikipedia was starting to take off, the whole open source movement and the potential of that, and just seeing, like, you kind of take it for granted now, but the Wikipedia was this crazy idea that like you can have this open encyclopedia anyone can contribute to. Like, how is that going to work? Like, there's no experts. Like,
seems
everyone,
absurd.
Yeah, everyone kind of laughed at it, and they're like, how is this going to work? Like, no one's going to take it seriously. You can't cite this in any school paper or whatever, but it was working, and I was just like on there, like learning more and more about all these kind of topics and just getting lost on these endless trails learning about stuff. Were you doing the same kind of thing yourself?
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't get too far into Wikipedia, but I remember thinking, yeah, this is crazy. This kind of made the encyclopedia companies obsolete.
But yeah, that's one great example of a centralized authority on information being decentralized. And I'm not totally clear on the mechanisms for deciding what is and isn't truth, but I know there's a lot of them have just like, this topic is contentious or whatever, and you can look and read both sides of the story, whereas Encyclopedia Britannica, it's like, oh, we got a few experts together and they know this is what happened, and who knows what their allegiances are or who's paying them to give a certain version of history. The Wikipedia, yeah.
I love reading, for every concept I read about, reading also the criticisms of it. Just being able to go back and forth between ideas, like the whim of, the whole world's opinion on something. Well, not the whole world, but, all the people who care about that topic are interested in it.
It's really hard to know what is actually going on in the world, though. Like,
yeah, that's kind of why.
So many conspiracies, theories, so many opinions, so many variations.
It's kind of why I was never really that political, because it just seemed like there was no way to understand what was going on in the background, and like the power dynamics between the different politicians, and they know that they have this little bit of information that the other person doesn't, and like it seems so convoluted that it's like you can't even begin to scratch the surface of what the hell is actually going on.
Yeah, and I mean I wish more people had that viewpoint. Like, so many people will just latch on to one. People who are so not critically thinking, they'll just latch on to some issue based on emotion, and that's their standpoint. They don't want to dig deeper, they don't want to question their own interpretation or leanings or travel or meet people outside of their sphere and really learn more about a topic. But
that's what's great about the internet, though, and like Wikipedia, is that it does help you learn critical thinking skills, because you can look at so many different viewpoints. Like, it's a lot easier to be political these days, because it is easier to sort of understand what's going on, but still the institutions are still pretty close, and you're trusting people you don't know. When you're trusting people you don't know, you can't really trust, what's going on. So that's still my stance, but it seems like with the things like WikiLeaks and the rise of information just liberating itself from the ether, there's a lot more to go on, and a lot more to think about, and you can't know it all, right?
within politics, there are laws of the universe, like power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So if you believe that is the case, then we need to figure out,
I do believe that,
a way to decentralize these power structures, and the less power, the less corruption, the less war and problems within society.
The less concentration of power, because the whole idea is that it gets dispersed back to everyone who entrusted it in the first place, and then, like you're saying, that creates more liberation for individuals, more freedom, and more happiness. So,
if you believe in people, yeah. I think that's a big part of this conversation too, is that a lot of people believe that humans are fundamentally evil. And I mean, if that's your standpoint, then you should probably just give up.
You mean like
humanity in general?
I don't think people are. I think most people think they're doing the right thing. They think they're doing good, but sometimes there's definitely people who there's definitely like this desire to scapegoat other people. Like, I think that is human nature, but you can point that energy at something else than other, people.
You mean to blame other people for your problems?
Yeah, to scapegoat.
'Cause you're a victim.
I think that's a very natural thing to do, and that energy is like a ritualistic energy that people have, and it's never going to go away. It's like a religious energy that circulates, and but you can direct it at stuff that is more peaceful. Partying, exactly. Cooperating, scapegoating centralized power or systems, not people, like the actual system. Scapegoat the actual root of the problem.
Yeah, and it's so easy to demonize a person. You can say, Trump's a racist, he's a misogynist, he's a whatever, and everyone's just like freaking out and arguing with each other.
Because we love doing that. It's natural, it's totally natural.
I mean, if you're driven by emotion, sure, but if you take a step back and analyze the entire system, and you realize that the problem is centralized power, and that every 4 years you're going to have this us versus them melee of ridiculousness, trying to figure out who's the lesser of two evils, as they say. It's like, yeah, you can just keep having this battle forever until someone eventually fucks up with some nukes and blows everything up, or we could decentralize and make this whole argument obsolete. But yeah, beyond the Wikipedia, I came across a film called Money as Debt, which was apparently made by a guy here in BC, which was, for the first time, it made me aware of the debt-based monetary system and all the ramifications, including the incredible potential for abuse of these centralized monetary systems. So, central banks lending money out at whatever interest rate they set to banks who lend it out again, and inflation, there's a lot of details to it. But yeah, got turned on to that, and it really got me thinking and questioning how the system operates and what is going on, and what could be a better way to have money flowing throughout the economy. And I also began work on a new documentary film called Humanity, which is a nature documentary that observed the human race from an anthropological perspective, which took the position that human societies are backwards, cruel, and ignorant, but they don't have to be anymore because of the internet. And basically proffered that the internet could be used to create a new society that would finally help us to evolve beyond all the war, hatred, division, and dissociation of the past. And I don't know, I guess I've, for a long time, have naturally kind of viewed the world as some sort of dispassionate outsider, just kind of watching people as an anthropologist would, and how they move around and what they get excited about, and all these behaviors that completely parallel those of the animal kingdom. Like, if you go to the bar and you observe the mating ritual of the human, and you've got these guys like buying drinks, and like they got their plumage, like their fancy clothes, they're trying to impress the woman with their status, and it's just like these birds or whatever doing their silly dance, like showing off their tail feathers, strutting around. And you can look at any human, well, most human interactions that way, and it's just hilarious. You can look at politics that way. The thing that really differentiates from us from animals is definitely art. Animals don't do anything artful, or do they?
Well, I mean, what is art? Back to that quote.
You can answer in the comments below. But yeah, I think that kind of, I don't know, I'm not like, oh, I'm a critical thinker, but that's kind of the critical thinking mindset, to not just be completely embroiled in all this stuff and oblivious like a fish, not knowing it exists in water or whatever. If you can look around and observe the world, pretend you're an alien outsider, and you're like, oh,
yeah, I mean,
why are they dressed that way? Why
Yeah.
are they behaving that way? Why do we keep killing each other and doing these stupid wars over and over? And when you have that kind of a mindset and that kind of analytical focus on humans and human relationships, I think it's a great way to observe anything and try and understand it, instead of just leading with emotion and reaction. And if more people did that, I think the world would function a lot better. What were you thinking?
well, I was just gonna say, I think that's maybe what we have in common. If that's how I felt growing up as well. Just kind of observing, even my friends in high school, and like, why they're doing this, and like this weird status stuff, like what's cool, what's not cool, and that always kind of like bothered me, I guess, a bit, because I was so aware of it, and my friends maybe weren't so aware of it. I don't know. I just never always felt like I was on the outside looking in rather than inside looking out.
It's interesting you say that. But I feel like that's within this world of DDP and decentralization, and it also seems to carry over into Horst the Band fans. There is this tendency to be analytical, critical thinking, kind of an outsider, kind of more, I don't know, genuine in your way of being and expression, and this kind of need to be yourself and seek out that sort of experience. Like the DDP has never been like a cool thing. Like initially when we were starting, people were like, oh, we don't really have many friends. All our friends are just crazy. Not that that was a bad thing, but we were trying to figure out how to get more people out to the parties, and they're like, you gotta appeal to the hipsters. You gotta like, that's your crowd, and we're like,
You gotta make it cool. You gotta make it sexy.
like, yeah, I guess we'll try and get the hipsters somehow, but that's like the one group. Like the DDP has swept up all these amazing people from so many backgrounds and styles. Just jump in, but it seems like the hipsters are the ones that are just like, no, that's not cool. We're not doing that. We're gonna go friggin' pay a bunch of money for some used clothing and friggin' kind of.
Yeah.
How do they dance? They go like in the back, wearing all black.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine if you want to go for it, but
I could see how people wouldn't get it at first, and maybe like I didn't get it at first. Like I didn't was like, why are they like dressed all like silly, and like why is it so ridiculous and absurd? And then I realized the reason why is because it's so the people in the party don't take themselves too seriously, and that's exactly what kind of more hipstery people do. And when I understood that, then I was like, oh yeah, it's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. There's no other way.
well, that's funny. You were wondering at first. I mean, that's like, yeah, as soon as you have this sort of perspective on the world where you're like this outsider anthropologist, why would I wear a friggin' monkey suit? And like, I mean, definitely there's a lot of fear. Like people, I totally get that people you want to fit in, you want to be accepted, you don't want to lose your job, you don't want to lose all your friends because you're too weird. But yeah, I mean, if you had the option to wear a monkey suit or a banana suit and have the best time ever, why would you not choose the banana suit? Why wouldn't you wear neon or be ridiculous or just behave that way? And that's what the DDP and capital P partying is. It's a total affront and direct assault on normalcy and societal order and all these imposed social conditionings that we've beaten everybody into submission. And I mean, I don't want to diss hipsters or whatever, anyone that's kind of conformed to a way of being or a way of thinking. Like,
Do you think there's people who identify as hipster? I think that's the only way to reverse the spell.
Before it was cool. How do we reverse it?
You have to admit that you're a hipster, and that's the only way to reverse the spell, because...
First step is admitting you have a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's the goal of the DDP and the whole decentralization movement, is I think it has to be 100% inclusive and allow everybody in, and that's what I want. Like, that's what everyone wants, is just everyone working together and having an amazing time together. So I don't want to seem like some sort of elitist critical thinker in this conversation.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
You don't feel that way?
No. No, Gary. We're just two guys
Astride a fern.
astride a fern, or a leaf thing. I don't know. Is that a
You
fern?
know what this plant is? Let us know in the comments below. And subscribe,
Share your knowledge on the internet today.
please. Speaking of plants, in 2007 I had a job landscaping and listened to podcasts and books on tape all day long. So I was listening to stuff like, there's a book called The Wisdom of Crowds, which basically says, like, rather than taking the opinion of a small group of experts, it's better to get a random sample of like a ton of people to figure out an answer or a solution to a problem. Like one example was this some submarine just like disappeared in the middle of an ocean, and they had no idea how to find it or whatever, and they asked experts, and they asked some group of random people based on I don't know what, and somehow with this wide sample of knowledge they found, like, pinpointed this thing. It was totally nuts. And you see it on that, what's that show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or whatever it's called, with Regis. Like, you could phone a friend, like, oh, my friend's really smart, they might know the answer. Or you could ask, I guess it was the audience, and like, far and away, the audience was way better.
Oh, right, yeah.
A smart friend, like, that's a great example of it. And that was where I
Someone
got
you know and trust.
Don't trust the expert.
Yeah.
Trust the crowd. Maybe. But that was where I got the word decentralized from, that was one of there was like 4 criteria for a wise crowd, and one of them was like decentralization of opinions background. That word kind of stuck with me.
Oh, so that's where it came from.
That's where it came from.
Interesting.
So yeah, I was listening to all this stuff and thinking deeply about how to improve humanity and work on that humanity movie and develop the script, deliver the vision for the film. And I can't remember the exact train of thought that catalyzed it, but at some point I was just kind of struck by this eureka moment where I was like, the entire world could become open source. It totally blew my mind. I was just like trimming a hedge or whatever, and I was just like, man, everything could be open source.
I remember I remember that too.
You had one of those?
Yeah, oh yeah. Just I don't remember the exact moment, but it was like 3D printers, solar panels, and open source culture, and I started finding all these open source culture things on the internet, and just exploded my mind. It's like, this is the way forward. We must do this. Open source everything.
You didn't want to vote for change.
I don't. I probably still voted, but it inspired me a lot. It made me more political in a way where I was just paying attention to things more, whereas before I was more apathetic about the way things are.
Excellent. Around this time, the presidential race, 2008 U.S. presidential race, was ramping up once again, and I randomly stumbled across the Republican primaries on a primitive YouTube. And among the usual panel of conservatives peddling the traditional views and rhetoric, which I will not criticize because this isn't a forum for criticism, one man stood alone, and that was Dr. Ron Paul. 2008. Recognize.
Good old Ronnie.
Ronald Paul. He was a gray-haired grandfather from Texas, and he was straying completely from the party line, fearlessly championing the craziest things I had ever heard a politician say. He was calling for the legalization of all drugs, an end to all military adventurism, return to the gold standard, scaling back government drastically, and prioritizing personal freedom and responsibility. With great freedom comes great responsibility. This was all very intriguing, as these were viewpoints that basically do not exist in Canada, where we have a strongly collectivist history, and often define ourselves by how we differ from the ardently individualist USA. Although Ron Paul's campaign inspired a huge passionate following, much like the Bernie Sanders campaign this year, his was suppressed by the powers that be, leaving many dejected and disaffected. Anyhow, I dug deeper and deeper into libertarian philosophy and discovered that it really resonated with open source philosophy as well. I was also extremely interested at this time in a persistent local issue, which is the addiction problem in Vancouver's downtown East Side region, which is basically within, I don't know what it is, 10, 15 square blocks. There's like 10,000 drug addicts. You can go down there any time of day, see people like shooting heroin, just like lying in the street, bleeding, waiting for an ambulance to come get them. It's totally crazy. And hundreds of millions of dollars from local outreach organizations, and governments didn't seem to be, I shouldn't say, I mean, I have written here, didn't seem to be having much of an effect. I'm sure a lot of people were helped, but this was a persistent thing that had been going on for decades or whatever, and still going on today. So I've kind of put my mind to that, given these open source and libertarian things I've been researching and thinking about, and I dreamed up an open source solution. There's that word, solution. But yeah, this idea was a thing called the Decentralized community. This is the paper. And it was kind of an adjunct to the Humanity movie that I was still working on. I wrote this manifesto and built a basic website, and then started testing it out by interviewing homeless people. But at this time, or closely thereafter, my attention got diverted by another decentralized project, which is the Decentralized Dance Party. But before we depart from this, on the cover it says, "The Decentralized Community is a revolutionary new initiative that applies the principles of open source software to long-standing social issues. The intention is to directly unite those who are suffering with those who can help, enabling individuals who were previously isolated to devise creative, long-term solutions to their problems." You've checked this thing out, right?
I have.
You think it's stupid?
No, I think it's great. I think the idea, well, the basic idea, right, is people around the area who are homeless, that, you know, you live in the area, it makes sense that you would help them, and rather than just realizing, going, oh, well, they're on welfare and they'll be taken care of by the state or whatever. It actually does make a lot more sense for everyone just around their area, just help everyone else, and like you said, figure out creative solutions for, you know, hard problems like, you know, mental illness and psychological damage.
Yeah. And this was definitely, it was inspired by a lot of the philosophies of Ron Paul, or libertarians in general, where he was like calling for a complete end to the war on drugs, which is like, it was started, at least in the States, I think it started under Nixon like 50 years ago or something. They're like, war on drugs, we're going to stamp out drugs. And all it really did was increase drug violence by empowering the gangs that distributed them, and made sure that the supply was tainted, so people are injecting. Like, we just had 600 people have died in BC from fentanyl. Like, the supply is completely tainted. You've got criminals who are shooting each other and shooting people caught in the crossfire to have rights to distribute. I think drug use is at, I don't know if it's all-time highs, but it's been a completely abysmal failure.
All the killings in Mexico.
Yeah, it's insane, and people keep saying, oh, maybe if we just increase the sentences or whatever. Like, thank God there's starting to be, like, you see decriminalization happening in places like Portugal and Paraguay, I don't know, all kinds of weird places where they've done like full decriminalization of like heroin and everything, and they've had amazing results where the drug issue is treated as a health issue instead of a criminal issue, so it's not like,
I think that's the key difference.
You're doing these drugs, how about if we lock you in a cage with a bunch of violent psychos for a few years? That'll straighten you out. And a lot of this was, the decentralized community thing too, was informed by, I read a book called In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by a local guy, Dr. Gabor Mate. So I had a friend of mine recommended it to me. They were struggling with drug and alcohol stuff. And yeah, he says like every single person down on Hastings Street, the downtown east side, like every single one had like horrible child abuse that just like ruined them. And then they didn't have a support network in a lot of cases to help them get through it. And yeah, to treat these people as criminals, or to
is criminal.
It should be. One day it will be. I gotta let our friend in. So, that was just part 1. Part 2 is coming soon. Don't miss it, and don't stop